Hari Om. Om Namo Bhagavate Chidanandaya. So now, with little bit of technical management delays, now everything is working fine. And we have with us our Suchat Mataji. She has been like a mother to me since so many years. And she is one person from a family. Every member of this family has special love and grace from the Swami Chidananda. So normally when we talk about devotees, we say, well, Swami Chidananda Maharaj is one personality in all the places, but when he reaches Suchaks, he becomes a different person altogether. It's a totally different side of Swami Chidananda Maharaj we see. And that side is seen right behind her, that picture. So I don't want to take more time now. I will request Ava Mataji to share. Of course, there's a lot to share, but we will go. I would say 20 minutes for Mataji to speak about whatever she likes to speak about. I don't want to say what she should speak. She will speak her heart out about Swamiji because her love for Swamiji is just unimaginable.
Thank you, Swamiji. First of all, my prostrations at the feet of all my gurus, Swami Shivanandaji Maharaj, Swami Chidanandaji Maharaj, all the gurus of the Parampara. Open the door. I hope I am audible, Swamiji. I'm audible?
Yeah, you're audible, Mataji.
Okay. You see, my first contact with Swamiji was magical, absolutely magical. And I did not know at that time ki kya hua. It was like something that came and totally enveloped me, and that it was a very, very, very beautiful existence. And after a few years reading this, that, then I realized that this is what people call surrender. This is what is called surrender, where all questions end, all answers appear, and you are totally wanting to be at the feet of your guru. That's all you want. And it happened in a split moment. There was no prologue, no explanations, no preface to this story. It just happened, and it happened in a moment, less than a moment. Today I want to, there are a lot of things that I have, through years experienced with him. Some are personal, some are lessons, and today I like to stress mostly on the lessons. And he was a guru who you had to see and learn, because he personified every teaching that he taught us. You see, I'll start with a very small thing. Swami Chidanandaji Maharaj he was not able to distinguish between this one or that one, or people or even animals. There's a small instance, what happened once. I used to, whenever he was visiting us, I used to drive him off from the airport as soon as he came out, and Swami Ramswarupanandaji and or Swami Sharnagatanandaji would follow in another car with his luggage. So I got that me time with him. And one time he told me, "Ki Mataji, I need to go to the washroom very urgently, so you please tell the children," that is my son and daughter Suraj and Tui, "that I will come out and meet them afterwards, so I'll rush to the washroom." I said, "Yes, Swami, perfectly alright." So when we entered, he rushed to his room, and I was just organizing his luggage in the sitting room, and then I suddenly came this side and saw he had not gone into the room. He was sitting outside his room on the ground, on the floor, and my two dogs, Diana and Prince, were all over him, licking his face, and he was cuddling them, talking to them. They were talking to him. I asked Swamiji, "What happened? You did not go to the washroom." He says, "Oh, you see, you will make your children understand that Swamiji was in a hurry, but what will they know?" they will feel that Swamiji has not talked to them. They'll feel so hurt. So he could only see the Atman. He could not distinguish between a person or a woman or man or black or white or religion or anything. Now there were no distinctions. There was only one pure Atman. He always said that you are radiant immortal Atman, and that's what he viewed everyone as. Then there's another very small instance I want to talk about is that he used to tell us, I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm immortal Atman. And he actually lived it. He lived it. You see, once in the 1990s, he had come and we said, let's have some investigations done because we have a hospital here where he used to come and stay. So he had to have sonography done. And I took him to the sonography room, and the doctor said that his bladder is not yet full, so let the bladder be full and then we will do it. So I took him to my office and asked him to drink some water and all. After half an hour, 45 minutes of sipping on water, I asked him, Swamiji, is your bladder full? He says, oh wait, let me check. He took a moment and then he says, yes, now it is full, we can go and check. So you see, he was not living in his body, he was always beyond his body. It was for him, he was not his body, he was not the mind, he was that eternal Atman always. Then you see, another lesson he taught us in striving for perfection. He had a very peculiar way of arranging his plate thali for his meals, and I had over the years learned how to do it, and I did it exactly the way he would like. The various size spoons would be at various angle, at the straight angle, and the tissue would be folded and precisely put at a certain angle, and everything should be just right. And then I sat in front of him to serve him, and in my head it was going on, what is this fussy, he's so fussy. It's in my mind, I didn't say anything, but he says, oh gee, this is not fuss. I got caught. He said, oh gee, this is not fuss. If you are striving to attain that perfect being, start with being perfect in the smallest of your day-to-day work. If you cannot attain perfection in these small things, how do you think you will attain that perfect being? So there was so much grace, and every movement had a meaning. There's one instance, in 1988 in the Mahakumbh, I had gone and we were going to make this Ram Mandir in our house, and Swamiji was giving me instructions, what is to be done, all the geometrical instructions, and the instructions were not yet complete when we had to reach the station, and we were on the overbridge at the station, and we were walking, and we could see the train is waiting. Swami Ram Swarupanand was in the train with all the luggage and panicking because we were late. Swamiji was late, and then while we were still on the overbridge, we noticed the train started inching out. I said, Swamiji, run, the train is going. But he kept giving me the instructions, and very aram se, in a very soft, gentle manner and with detail, as if he was explaining something, teaching something to a 2-year-old. And when we reached the platform, the train had already taken a little speed. So he is walking alongside his bogie where Swami Ram Swarupanand is panicking inside, and he's walking alongside with long strides. He had those very long strides. He's walking alongside with long strides. I'm running by his side, and he's telling me while running, and then those long strides became running. He's running with the train, and he's explaining to me those very geometrical, intricate details in a very calm and a very slow way, So this is something which really caught me unawares. I said, how can a body be so much in motion and the mind be so calm? So you see, he was beyond this body experience. It was surreal, absolutely surreal. It may sound something very small, but try doing it. Try running and then be very quietly explaining something to somebody who's running alongside. And then when he was done, he just jumped onto the footboard and took off. So that was, there was a difference between the body experience and the mind. He was too different. He was not the same. One time I had gone to Uttarkashi, and with the book which now is known as Forever Here, I had gone with the manuscript and I asked his permission, and I showed it to him, and I said, Swamiji, if you give me permission, I want to print this. So he said, oh, very nice. So what is it that you want to call it? So I said, Swamiji, you give the name. So he said, no, you must have thought of a name. So I said, I have thought of a name, Beyond Space and Time, because you are beyond space and time. So he says, but time and space is your reality also. So if you put me beyond space and time, I'll be very far from you. So why not call it Forever Here? I am forever here. There is no space, there is no time. I'm forever here. And that's how the book became Forever Here. These are things, and he said that I also promise all my devotees that I will forever be with them. I'll be forever here. Then one time, you see, whenever he would come home, I took special care to collect some nice reading material from him. He was very fond of reading, and he would read all kinds of lovely literature and all, not just spiritual books and all. So I would collect some good new publications and put on the shelf in his room. So one time he called me in for something, and he is talking to me with a book in his hand like this, and once he rolls the book, and then he rolls the book again, and 3 times, and then he puts it back in the shelf, and then goes back to sit, and he says, Oji, on page number so and so, on the left hand side corner, just open and see, they have written this. And I am aghast, and I am looking at the book on that particular page, and he is rattling out all that was written there. I said, Swamiji, you have read this book before, but this is a new publication. So he says, yes, I just read it while talking to you. Oh my God. So that was, it took me but you see, and then he explained. And also, one time in San Diego, we were there with him on Halloween, and some devotees had got some very lovely instruments, and they were singing. And then there was a very new kind of strange instrument, and Swamiji said, can I have a look? So he took it and he started playing, and he could play Western classical music perfectly without a note slipping here and there. So after that book experience and this music, I asked him, Swamiji, you don't have any training in this, how come? So he says, all the knowledge is there in the universe. The universe holds all the knowledge. You have to learn how to tap it. You just have to learn how to tap it. And after that, after many years, came this concept of Wi-Fi and storing knowledge and stuff in a cloud and tapping it with your phone. This came much later, and he was already doing it. This is you see, I feel there are some things that have helped me shape my life and make me the person that I have become. He always was there whenever we called for him. Even if I called for him without any formal letter or telephone or anything, he was always there. And he had promised all his devotees that I'm always going to be there. You see, in 1997, it was the first time that dengue came to Bombay. And that time the doctors did not have much knowledge or much expertise on dealing with it. And my daughter happened to get it bad. My daughter Tui, her platelets were dangerously low, and so we decided that we admit her to a big hospital, some corporate hospital, and we booked a bed for her there. And I rushed upstairs to the house to just to put some stuff together so that I could be there for a few days with her. And when I came home, I grumbled at him and I scolded him. I said, what are you doing, Swamiji? What is this? Why are you doing all this? Why can't you tell me, please take care, these are your children. Wow. I was angry, I was mad at him, and I was angry and I was showing my anger to him. And I was doing this is my habit. I'm always talking to him, and sometimes I get angry, I'm happy, I'm loving, I'm all my roots I have shown him. So I collect my stuff and come down, and when I'm at the reception of the hospital, my hospital, the receptionist says, Abha, there is a call for you. I said, I'm not going to take any calls. She said, no, this is some Swamiji from Rishikesh. So I took the call, and it was Gurudev. My God, I had just fought with him. I had fought with him at home, and there was a call from him, and he says, don't say anything, just listen to me and repeat after me. What he said was, pray to God and Gurudev to give you the intuition to be able to take the right decisions at the right time. Now repeat. He made me repeat it. And you will not believe, when I went to my husband's office, and by then another doctor had joined him, and then they had a conference, and then they said that it would not be nice to admit this child into a corporate hospital, because in this condition she can get hospital-borne infections and get very sick. So we changed our decision and we went to another doctor and treated her at home. So this decision came after the intuition and the prayer. So he is always listening to you. Whatever you may think that he doesn't know, but he knows. He knows everything. You see, one time I had a bad accident. I had an accident where a man got bumped off my car, and on 12th day he died. That took me very badly down, and I went into a depression, and I did not know how to handle this situation. And Swamiji was not there. Swamiji had gone to South Africa. That was soon after the this had opened up. So I had been crying for him. I had been talking to him, not personally, but I had been talking to him through my heart. And then one time we got an invitation to go visit the satsang of Sri Sathya Sai Baba. So I just went, and Baba was speaking in Tulu, and it was being translated word by word. So when I was there, I got the message exactly what I needed at that moment. This is what I had to hear to be able to handle my state of mind. And from there, when we came back, and I could feel the presence of only Gurudev. So when we came back, and 2 nights later, I get a call from South Africa. It is Swamiji, and he says, can I speak to you for 5 minutes? I said, oh Swamiji, I've been crying for you for a month. And he took off exactly from where Sri Sathya Sai Baba had left, and he started telling me. And then he told me that, okay, I will do one thing. Instead of going from South Africa to Delhi, I'll come via Bombay. I'll spend a night in Bombay. So we happened to meet again in Bombay, and then I asked him, Swamiji, how is it possible? I have been crying for you, and this happened with Baba's message, and Baba was speaking, and it was exactly in tune with what I needed to hear at that time. So he said that Guru Tattva is Ishwar Tattva, Ishwar Tattva is Guru Tattva. So if you are calling for your Guru, the Ishwar Tattva has to answer you, the Guru has to answer you, and he will take any way to answer you. He will use any medium, and he will come to you. That is a promise. And you see, these are why I'm telling you all these things, because these are not things that I have read, I have heard. These are things that I have experienced, and that is what has built up my faith. And of course, surrender happened in a moment. You don't have to think about surrender. It has to happen, and it happens without knowing. His boundless love and compassion. You see, one time he told me that you have to be a sannyasi within the world. You don't need to change your clothes, but do your work, do whatever you are doing as a sannyasi would. And you see, there is one last thing I want to tell you, that Guru never dies. He told us, he said Guru never dies. He lives through each and every disciple in the form of his ideas, his vision, his attitude. But I have one more thing to add. He lives and he doesn't go away. He doesn't leave his disciples ever. One last thing I'll tell you. In 2014, we had a very big crisis, and it was 6 years after Gurudev had left his body. And same thing. I was in office, and I had a visit from a whole big gang of income tax, including the commissioner. And as they walked into my office, I understood that this is what it is, and I understood the gravity of the situation. And I turned to him and I said, again I got mad at him, I got angry with him. I said, what are you doing? What are you doing? Can't you see? And the very next moment when I turned, I was so full of panic, and I was angry also. But as soon as I turned around to face these people, my whole attitude changed. I told myself, wow, this is the best thing that could have happened. If a calamity of this quantum had to come to me, what better could have happened? So my husband, after 7 years of transplant, was doing well. My children, all of them were doing well. They all have their own families, and everybody is settled, everybody is good. I am fine, everything else is fine. Nobody has met with an accident, nobody has a life-threatening disease. And if a calamity of this big nature can be just money, nothing better than that, nothing better than that. And I turned around and said, thank you Gurudev. So I know that he is present even now, right now, over here. And when he said that the Guru never dies, he actually told us that he will live through us. And it is now our responsibility, a very big duty, a very big responsibility to be what he wanted us to be. We should be what would make him proud. And people should see us and say, कि अरे इनका गुरु कौन है? Swami Chidananda. So we should be worthy of his feet. We should be worthy of the dust in his feet. And I'm getting emotional, I'm sorry, but I have to thank everybody. I have to thank everybody for listening to me. There are a lot of other things, and I have just skimmed over the surface, and I've only spoken of things that would bring out his glory in front of everyone. And there are a lot of other things that have transpired in my life. And we'll meet again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Abha Mataji, so much.
Thank you.
So, to correlate two people after our Mataji, now Mohini Mataji will speak. So,
I can see Mohini Mataji now.